Yes, good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to the NBA-SBL Business Law Weekly. This is season 3, episode 12, and today's edition is hosted by the Insurance and Pensions Committee, and it is titled The Benefits of the Contributory Pension Scheme to Legal Practitioners. This promises to be a very insightful and educative edition, and it has been organized by the Insurance and Pensions Committee as part of its mandate to deepen the knowledge of legal practitioners in relations to this subject area, the subject area of pensions, and subsequently we'll be educating more on the subject area of insurance. Another reason why we've brought this edition of the Business Law Weekly your way is that we want to deepen or rather increase the awareness of legal practitioners of the use of insurance and pensions as tools for creating and preserving wealth. We know that there are certain peculiarities of our profession that makes it mandatory for legal practitioners to be armed with all the information that is available to aid wealth generation and preservation. So we'll go right into the Business Law Weekly edition. We have two speakers, two very knowledgeable speakers. We have Adora Ude. She's also a lawyer, so it's good to have a learned friend with us. But she's coming in here today in her capacity as the Associate Director of Business Development, Lagos, for Access ARM Pensions. We also have Yetunde Olumuyiwa. Yetunde heads the Private Clients and Mortgages Unit at Access ARM Pensions, and she's our second speaker. Our moderator for today is none other than the Assistant Secretary of the Insurance and Pensions Committee, who also happens, and we're very proud of that, he happens to be the Assistant General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Henry Barnabas Ehi. So I'm sure that we will have a very, very useful and insightful session, and I will leave in the hands of the panel. I say welcome again, and I wish you a very pleasant time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
My
for
very
having
own
us.
chair for that brief introduction. We are going to be starting straight up. Ordinarily, we're supposed to have the General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association here with us because the topic is key to some of the things that he hopes to achieve in this administration. But for some reason, he's behind time. So when he comes online, he would notify us so that we can just give him just a brief moment because he's on the transit. Today's topic is very, very key because financial stability and financial security is something that most lawyers do not really put in perspective. Most of the time, we are focused on the practice of law. At the end of the day, we do not think about the future. We do not think about what happens to us after we retire, because definitely we're going to retire someday for the practice of law. And then most of the time, we channel our energy on just the practice of law and how to keep on our daily living. And nothing is being said of when we retire, when we are old, when we don't have the capacity or the ability to work, and what happens after then. So this topic is critical and is crucial, and we have very key persons who would help us discuss and navigate this topic. Now, I will start with Adora because the introduction has already been done, and we just want to have a brief on the topic for discussion. So, Adora, please, could you please tell us what Contributory Pension Scheme entails and what we should know about the topic itself, Contributory Pension Scheme and micro pension?
Very much, Henry. And then, like I said again, thank you very much, everyone, for having us. So speaking to the Contributory Pension Scheme, which we refer to as the CPS, it came about in 2004 by the Pension Reform Act of 2004, amended in 2014. And this scheme was a mandatory scheme, statutory mandatory scheme for people in paid employment, and is designed to enable employees and employers in the public and private sector to jointly contribute towards their pension. So in this case, employers are mandated to contribute 10%, and then the employees another 8%, making a total contribution of 18% into retirement savings accounts that are opened for the employees, and this is towards their retirement. And it covers, like I said, between public and the private sector. And this has run, it's almost 2 decades now we have run, and the CPS is in excess of about 10 million contributors and almost about 16 trillion in AUM in asset under management. Now, on the flip side, the micro pensions is slightly different from the CPS. This covers people who are in, the informal sector, not organized labor, SMEs, and because PENCOM realized that the majority of individuals, even in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, are in the public sector, or rather in the informal sector. So what you find is we have been running the CPS for almost 2 decades now, and we only have about 10 million subscribers. What it speaks to is that the bulk of the people are in the informal sector, the unorganized informal sector, and SMEs. And for that reason, PENCOM also then came up with a framework for the micro pension scheme. Now, for the micro pension scheme, it runs almost identical with the CPS. The difference is that the mode of contribution is different. It doesn't come from an employer, it comes from an individual. So this is like a very, very big opportunity for even lawyers who are running their own practices to be able to key into this. It's governed by the same rules and regulations as PENCOM. The investment asset classes that we're investing is typically the same, but the only difference is perhaps because of the way that the micro pensions you have to access, it's more frequently, and the contributions are also slightly skewed. You can do daily, monthly, quarterly, and so on, because it's almost like a voluntary scheme. Now, this is not statutory. The CPS is statutory, but the micro pensions is purely voluntary, but it also enables us provide financial security in retirement for people in this category as well. So that's the difference between the CPS, which is a contributory pension scheme, and the micro pension scheme. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adora. Before I do a follow-up question, please permit me to allow the General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association to speak, because he's in transit right now. He's in Makurdi as we speak for an NBA function, and he gave me his word that he'll be there. So let's just give him just 1 minute to just greet the house, and then we proceed. And I think one of the things that he has also promised as one of his campaign speech is to help lawyers in their workplace. So this is one of the things that lawyers need to know in their workplace, and we hope that the General Secretary will help facilitate the issue of pensions and the micro pension as regards lawyers in Nigeria. Over to you, Mr. Dr. Mobulaji Ojibara, please.
Thank you so much, Henry. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Adora. Good afternoon, Yetunde. And thank you very much, Henry, for this opportunity. Like he said, I'm unfortunately in transit now. As a matter of fact, when he told me that the meeting is about starting now, we had to stop on the road, and I just look for somewhere to just open my laptop to join this meeting, because of course, before I left Abuja, when we were in office yesterday, I assured him that wherever I might be, if I'm still alive on this earth, when this session comes up, and I will join. I'm also the chairman of the SBL was incidentally in my office in Abuja yesterday, and we had a lot of discussion concerning the works of the SBL. Of course, I have been a member of SBL, an active one for that matter, for a very long time. So matters concerning SBL generally is something that I take to heart So every opportunity that I have to contribute to anything that concerns SBL is something I want to be part of. Now, I'm going to the contributing pension scheme, which we are talking about here. A lot of us here probably already know what this signifies. But what I understand is it presents a significant opportunities for legal practitioners. And that's why, like he said, we mentioned it as part of the key points in our manifestos when we were doing campaign that brought us to the office which we now occupy, where we are representing you, particularly in securing financial stability during retirement. Of course, the scheme, as we might have been aware, is governed by the Pension Reform Act of 2014, if I'm right. And it emphasizes shared responsibility between employees and employers, fostering a sustainable retirement system. The problem, particularly with legal practitioners, is the fact that particularly those of us who are in private legal practice, is the fact that we lose track on preparing for our retirement. A lot of us don't make conscious efforts at ensuring that we have sustainable retirement period after our retirement as legal practitioners. So some of the key benefits that I believe are credible when you subscribe to this scheme would include financial security and stability in retirement. Like I said, many legal practitioners, particularly a lot of us who are in practice, face the challenge of inconsistent income flows after we retire from practice. So this scheme guarantees steady savings throughout a career period, and it ensures that retirement is not characterized by the stress a lot of lawyers go through after they retire, or of course, some of us will always say that private legal practitioners don't retire. But the truth is, at a time will come that you will not even be able to go to court again. You will not be able to perform your function as an active legal practitioner again. Another benefit of this scheme, to my understanding, is the employer contributions. The scheme ensures that both the employer and the employee contribute towards this scheme. This dual contribution increases the value of retirement benefits, often a more secure feature for lawyers. So the scheme would ensure that not only will you be the one to contribute as an employee, your employer will also be part of the scheme. And of course, it also offers flexible retirement planning. Legal practitioners who retire early or opt for consultancy after active practice can access the pension, to my understanding, at 50 or choose structured withdrawals upon full retirement. So this flexibility allows them to design post-retirement plans that align with what I call personal goals. Of course, we all have our goals. It differs from one person to the other. And so whatever our goals are, it ensures that this thing aligns with it. People are making signals to me that we hearing me? Have you been hearing me?
Yes, doctor. Yes,
So,
doctor. But you have 30 seconds more, doctor, sir.
So, in conclusion, then, let me just round up, because even people are waiting for me. The CPS is more than just a statutory requirement. I must say it is a practical tool, to my knowledge, for legal practitioners to secure their financial future. So we are encouraged to embrace this system, not only for compliance, for the long-term peace of mind it offers, but whether we are in public service, corporate organizations, or private practice, the scheme guarantees that the reward of our labor will extend into our retirement years. Thank you for the audience and allow me to go out at this point. Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you, Adora. Thank you, Yetunde. And thank you, everyone at SBL. Thank you.
Thank you, GS. But before you go, please note that after this discussion, we'll come up with a paper that will then to advise the NBA as regards pension for lawyers.
Please, I will be delighted to discuss that at any time. I'm done. So thank you, Henry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Adora, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Please permit, doctor is a politician as well, so we'll just go straight to our discussion. Yes, so Adora, as you were saying, and then from your brief introduction, you try to differentiate between the contributory pension scheme, which you call the CPS, and the micro pension. And from all you've said, they are just one similar thing. We're looking at financial freedom at the end of the day, but the micro pension is restricted to the informal sector, which largely the lawyers, belong to, right? So how can lawyers, legal professionals really key in to this, especially where you have principals who do not remit the pension monthly or yearly, as the case may be? How do you advise? How can we navigate through these hurdles? And mind you, while answering this question, most lawyers under employment really do not have contract of employment, right? And so most of the time, their employers really pay them, and it's not something that is either static or formal or reduced to writing. And at the end of the day, some of this pay usually is not even does not even come frequently, as the case may be. So what's your advice? How can we key into the micro pension as an informal sector that we are?
I would just take a bit from what Doctor said. It is really around securing, financial goals, personal financial goals. And whilst even in the private sector, structured private, you still have some employers that are, recalcitrant, are not making pension contributions as and when due. We have all of those problems. And those are the things that we're dealing with as an industry. For lawyers who are already in, structured employment, that we have some that have been contributing for the past 2 decades, right? And I don't think that they are they don't have the problem. There are also some, like you said, that have contributed but are not frequent. Then you have the category of lawyers who maybe by virtue of the principal or the firm that they're working with, they aren't even doing anything with respect to pension. Now, you think about is time lost, but there's something that we can do to, make up for lost time. First and foremost, for people who are in, with an employer that had at some point been making contributions but are not consistent, we should make proactive steps to ensuring that our employers are, fulfilling the legal obligation. One way of doing that is perhaps, engaging the employer or writing to PENCOM, which some people might not be, open to. Now, if your employer is doing something for you already, you also have the ability to make additional voluntary contributions just because you want to meet up. Additional contribution is where you make, an additional contribution towards that pension that's already been opened and the employer and yourself are already contributing into. That's called the AVC, right? Then for people who don't have anything at all, I think that it is really taking your destinies into your hands through the micro pension plan. And you're just able to open that account by yourself and just structure a discipline in place that, allows you to every month, like a discount to an account for specific towards your pension. Now you can do that because the micro pensions, like we said, is flexible. You may actually decide, this month I will put X amount, next month, well, I didn't have a lot of briefs and so on and so forth. And therefore this month I have nothing to put in. And another month you might have done very well and so on and so forth, and you are able to even contribute more than you would have actually imagined. It is up to you. It could be done, like I said, daily, it could be done weekly, it could be done quarterly, and the amount is not regular. So I would say for legal practitioners to make up for lost times, it is really to start to engage your principals and say, look, we have been doing this, and I believe that even the SBL can work with lawyers who find themselves in this position, writing to employers who are, by the way, I'm sure also members of the NBA, to try to get these remittances up to speed. And whilst that is being handled, an individual can make additional voluntary contributions. Those are for people who are already currently making contributions, right? And if you haven't, then look, now is the time to start thinking about it and opening a personal micro pensions account for yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, before we proceed further, I want to recognize some council members that are here online. Please welcome. And our very own Rotimi is also online. Endurance is also online. Thank you very much for attending. Now, move straight to you, Yetunde. It's very, very key for any individual who wish to put or contribute to the pension scheme. And I will be worried, what happens to my money, really? Because I'm sure most of the persons who put in their money would it's actually their sweat. So they are worried. The manner in which these funds are being invested, because of course, I don't want to believe that these monies are just kept somewhere just like that, right? So I'm very sure that, the money are usually invested or treated in some way that brings profit or is being preserved over the years. And so how are these funds from the micro pension preserved or invested? How are funds from the CPS preserved and invested? Are they different? Should I really opt for the micro pension because this is more safe in terms of the investment package, or the CPS, as this case may be?
Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you. And thank you, Adora, for that. So in terms of the way the funds or the assets in the micro pensions are invested, as well as those under the contributory pension schemes are invested, it's actually similar, because you'll find out that you can invest in instruments or assets, in financial assets, like you are looking at government securities, you're looking at federal bonds, you're looking at state government bonds, you're looking at variable incomes like shares, that's equities. You're also looking at things like alternative investment, private equity. Those are all terms in the investment space. So they are actually similar in terms of the kind of investments that are made. But what varies within the, between the two is the fact that the allocation differs per fund. So there are 6 funds under the Pension Reform Act, and you have about 3 or 4 that are dedicated to the formal sector. That's the Fund 1, Fund 2, Fund 3, the funds as well. And then you also have the micro pension, which is called the Fund 5. And the kind of investments that are made are based on what has been approved by PENCOM and in the allocation that has been approved by pension. So I'll give you an example. For micro pensions, you can, for anyone in the micro pension scheme, you can withdraw 40% of your savings that you have made after 3 months. And then for those that are in, then the balance, which is the 60%, will now be accessed at retirement. So what does that mean? That means that a lot of the fund managers who are the pension fund administrators will be investing mostly in assets that are liquid, that are short tenor, to be able to take care of, the consistent or the availability of funds. That's the 40% that are allowable. So what this means is that investment in, for example, in money market instruments that is allowed for Fund 5, which is the micro pension fund, is up to 60%, whilst what is allowed in the formal sector is actually 30%. The same thing with other investments or other assets like the bonds, where you can do like 55% for Fund 5, and then you can do up to like 75% for those in the formal sector in Fund 1, Fund 2, and Fund 3. Because the only way you can access your funds in the formal sector under the pension scheme is when you are out of a job for a minimum of 4 months. If you want to access it for real estate purpose, if you are incapacitated by one form of medical condition or the other, or if for death benefit purpose. So that's when you can actually access it for those that are under the formal sector. But for Fund 5, which is for those under the micro pension scheme, you can actually access it more frequently. That's every 3 months. 40% of that value can be accessed. And because of that, it guides the kind of investment the fund manager is making on behalf of the RSA holder. So it's very key that you are with the right PFA. But in terms of the investment, they are similar, they are preserved. So you are sure that there's preservation of capital, then there's adequate return on the investment being made by the fund manager, that's the PFA, to be able to deliver superior investment return. So they are similar, but the allocation to the assets being invested in varies based on PENCOM guidelines.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. While we are still on this, I want to recognize the presence of Chief Emeka Obiagulu. He's the past General Secretary of the Nigerian Bar Association and the current chairman of the NBA Annual General Conference that will be held in Port Harcourt. I can see you, sir. And please, if you have your questions, please just look at your screen. You see the Q&A box. Please put in all your questions. We'll try as much as possible to attend to as many questions as we can. Now, I'm going back to you, Adora, please. There's different pension scheme and different accounts as it is, which of course we call multiples. We have the retirement savings account and other pension schemes. So can we separate this pension scheme with the multiples? Can I run as much accounts as I want to, or do I have to just focus on the pension scheme as per the financial security I seek to get?
Okay, so the CPS, that's the contributory pension scheme, and the micro pension scheme, they are mutually exclusive. They're not the same, and you cannot run multiples. So if you are registered under the contributory pension scheme, that account is, you run it for life, okay? And if you find yourself in the micro pensions, assuming that you are you're working for yourself, and you open a micro pensions account, it's a PIN number that will assign to you. It's a personal identification number, which is like an account number, as you would have your bank account number, and that account is yours for life. If you are in the micro pension scheme and sometime in the future you get employed in another firm, organization, or whatnot that runs the statutory pension scheme, you can actually migrate your micro pensions account to a CPS account, because right then an employer is going to, jointly be responsible for making those contributions. However, you cannot convert a current CPS account into a micro pensions account, because those are, like I said, they are mutually exclusive, but we don't combine both of them at all. There are also people in the private sector, but this is not for us, it's just defined benefit scheme. So for people who have gratuities and stuff, it is possible for them to have a pension account. It's not different accounts, it's just another fund for them that is held by their employer, but they still are beneficiaries to that particular fund. So in a nutshell, they are mutually exclusive, and we are not able to merge them at all.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, like I said earlier, please drop your questions on the Q&A box you find on your screen. Now, let's discuss for lawyers who have not really started planning about this, and now because of the discussion, they are in the terms of if their eyes is now open, how can they make up for lost time if it's possible? Can I backroll my payments as per contributory pension or the micro pension, or how do I begin if I have not, started pension? That's Adora, please. I'm sorry, before you continue, please, I don't want to offend anybody. So anybody I see, I just try to recognize. I can see the Assistant Publicity Secretary of the NBA, Ibire Emmanuel Ekpesi. Please, you are welcome, please. Thank you. Adora, please.
I wanted to just start by giving a small experience that I had in the early years. I think it was 17 years ago when the scheme started, like I said, almost 2 decades ago. The industry will be 20 by, I think, ending of this month, October. So it's come a long way. And I remember when we had to start, signing on individuals onto the scheme, a lot of people did not take it well. Even in private sectors, even in the banks, you think that bankers, very quickly rush to this, right? So, I mean, I really don't even blame anybody, because Nigerians are typically not used to this. We had long-standing stories of, pension funds being, mismanaged and all of that. But we have come from a place of complete darkness to a little bit of light. And I'll tell you why. When we started, the people who almost refused to sign up. It was statutory, by the way, but they almost refused to sign up. Why? Because they thought that they would do better managing their funds. And so I remember one individual that I tried to register, and he gave me a very hard time. And 5 years down the line, when I came back again, normal relationship management at the time, and he said to me, Adora, I can't believe this. I've saved 10 million naira in this account. Please, how can I access it? How can I take it? I can't believe I would have saved this amount of money. So you see, it's the power of compounding. Every month or every time that you add on monies, the monies are being invested in very restricted asset classes. And so it's investment return plus another investment and so on and so forth. So that power of compounding is what really gives the benefit of this scheme. And people have found that over time, they have actually saved so much that nobody would have thought possible, right? So for lawyers who have, are looking to then benefit, is to very quickly get on this plan. And if you are already on a plan, and perhaps, like I said earlier, your principal has not been consistent, they are recalcitrant, several months, or some people running into 2 years, you can take the bull by the horn and start making additional voluntary contributions. Very, very, very important, extra funds. Some of us are doing it today because we have a target, value that we want to retire with. And because of that, there are ways that we can, do simulations for you as an individual and say to you, look, if you want to retire with X amount, let's see for how long you want to contribute, how long you have an active service, and we can determine what you need to contribute on a monthly, quarterly basis to be able to meet your target, factoring in, the return on investment for those, for the fund that you are in. Whether it's Fund 1, Fund 2. So I'll talk a bit about Fund 1, Fund 2, and Fund 3. Now, when you are opening this account, you have to determine whether you want to be in Fund 1, Fund 2, or 3. Okay? And Fund 1 is very volatile, lots of equity exposures for people who have a long time to work and really don't mind taking investment risks. Fund 2 is a more balanced fund, where if you are between the ages, within 49 years old, you can be in Fund 2. Now, once an individual gets to 50, we usually will put them in the conservative fund of Fund 3. However, an individual that is 50 can opt to go back to the balanced fund of Fund 2. This is so that, you are able to take all of the opportunities and make as much money with the time that you have as possible. So it's very, very important that, we have this kind of conversations when we start talking to individuals who are interested in opening accounts. Those are the things that we will walk you through to say, well, look, this is your risk appetite, this is how long you have to work. We will, advise that you are in this fund versus this fund and that fund. So those are things that, can help an individual. And like I said, the additional voluntary contributions. But first and foremost, take the decision, if you don't have an account, to start today. It's better late than never, in my opinion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adora. Now I'll go back to you, Yetunde. And this question I want to ask is very, very key. Now, because I mean, for a long time, our inflation in the country has really, really not been stable, right? And so it's a huge concern as to guys. Now I'm doing a pension savings. How will the pension saving or the administrator track inflation or help me manage my funds that when I'll be needing it, it will give me the value that I deserve?
Thank you, Henry. Okay, so what has happened is that over time, you have fund managers that have professionals, that have expertise, they have knowledge. They've been able to manage funds and assets of clients successfully. And based on, the regulators' guidelines as well, they are able to invest appropriately in such a manner that when you retire, starting from 50 years as allowed by the Pension Reform Act 2014, or at 60 or 75, as the case may be for those that are in the educational sector, you are ensured that you have, you are assured of having your pension fund available for you to collect some bit of it as a lump sum or a bulk sum, and then the balance spread over your life where you collect a monthly pension. So, for example, the key thing to always remember whenever you're talking about inflation is you do not focus only on the current inflation. So, for example, as at August, inflation rate was at 32%, exceeding 32%. But what you should be more focused on as an investor, especially for an investor, a pension fund holder, an RSA holder, is that you are investing for the long term. You are investing for your retirement. So what the pension fund administrator is more particular about is to be able to beat average inflation, which since the pensions, since when the CPS started, it's been about an average of 13%. So you are not looking at where we have currently. And then the thing is that the return on funds have also been able to mirror that appropriately. So it assures you as a pension contributor that at the time of retirement, your asset is safe, it's guaranteed, and you're getting superior return. There is fund available for you to be able to take a bulk sum, which is called the lump sum, and for you to also be able to spread over, the balance is now spread over your lifetime, which is called the program withdrawal under the CPS, or the fixed part under the micro pensions, where you can take the 60%, because you would recall that I earlier said 40% is accessible every 3 months, and then the balance is actually accessible at retirement. So indeed, the fund managers, that's the pension fund administrators, track inflation because they want to ensure that you have real returns. That is, your return exceeds inflation. That is very key in being able to manage that. And another thing that you should put in mind is that you should be targeting the pension fund administrators that have consistently been able to show track record. So you see from their performance of their funds that they have been able to give superior investment return. So indeed, the investment of the funds in that aligns with pension guidelines and also aligns with the fund manager's competence is meant to preserve your capital and indeed outperform inflation. So you're not just looking at where inflation is at a point, you are looking at it an average, and then you look at the return on your investment, whether it is under the funds under the CPS or the funds under the micro pensions.
All right. I think Adora is itchy to say something. I don't know if you want to just contribute, Adora.
Yes, I was itching. You caught me right there. So, this is a very, very important discussion, even for us in the industry, right? Because of what is going on in the economy and inflation and so on. So just to add to what the yesterday has said, right now, because we are also an evolving organization, there's currently been a guideline that's being, worked on right now by the commission. We're looking to a place where, pension assets and investments will be dollarized so that we're able to hedge against inflation. Now, it's very important that policies are put in place and, the framework for how this will work is strengthened before those guidelines are released for us to utilize. But we have been clamoring for it just because, it is good to think of ways to preserve these funds that people have been contributing over the years. And as asset managers, we already know that where you are hedging by, investing in, dollarized instruments, you are able to beat inflation somewhat. So those guidelines are currently in the works, and we hope to see it in the near future. So everyone is working ambitiously towards that, in addition to what it is, because it is indeed a real worry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please, like I said earlier on, drop your question in the Q&A section. We'll attend to some of those questions as time will permit. Time is really running and we just have a limited time, but please just drop your questions in the Q&A section below. Now, this question, it will be the last question I'll be asking Yetunde, and it's very key because most of the time when we save money, we actually saving for the rainy day. But I think with the recent economy, I think the rain is falling every day. So you will now be wondering that why am I keeping this money somewhere so far that I cannot probably access, or how can I access? So I want to ask this question: what are the benefits for lawyers, either in the CPS or the micro pension midterm? What we've been talking about, long-term goals, with somebody who's alive that will be thinking about long-term goals. So probably you have an emergency and you have a situation where you think you need to attend to at the moment. So I really want to see what benefits we have within the short and middle-term goals as regards the pension scheme.
Okay, so when you are looking at the short to medium term, there are a number of benefits that the pension contributor would enjoy. One of it is the fact that you are having a dedicated fund manager that is able to provide superior returns for you. And most times you will find out that if you are investing by yourself, because you do not have the capacity in terms of the skill and also the time, because you are focusing on your law business, you are unable to get the kind of return that you would expect that, just like you mentioned earlier, will be able to at least outperform inflation. So you are able to get superior returns. And by the time you look at the power of compounding, you are consistently, growing your funds. Then another key thing is the fact that for those in the micro pension space, just like I mentioned earlier, you are able to access 40% of it every 3 months. So on a regular basis, you are able to do that. And then for those under the CPS, if you've been out of job for a minimum of 4 months, you can actually access your fund. So you are technically not financially stranded. So if you, for one reason or the other, the pension contributor, whilst under the age of retirement that is allowed by law, which is 50, that's if the person is 49 years and below, the person can actually access up to 25% of that fund. So far, the person has been out of job for 4 months, for a minimum of 4 months. Then another good thing that has been introduced, by a regulator, that's PENCOM, is that sometime last year, what they did was to give us guidelines that will be able to allow pension contributors to be able to access the real estate space, where they can access up to 25% of their pension pension contribution, to be able to take it as equity contribution for mortgage. So basically what this means is that prior to now, just like I'd explained earlier, the only time you could access your pension contribution, especially if you have been doing that under the CPS is when you have been out of job for a minimum of 4 months, if when you are retiring, or if there has been an instance of death, that's the beneficiaries can get that, or if the person has a medical conditions that is quite restraining. So, but now what PENCOM have said is that you can access 25% of it for real residential real estate purpose, where you can actually get a property. But the thing is that it has to be under the arrangement of a mortgage, and you will now be accessing a maximum of 25% to use that as your equity contribution. Because in a mortgage transaction, there are usually two legs to the transaction. You have the mortgage, which is the housing loan, and then you have an equity contribution, which is what you are supposed to bring in as your own capital. So prior to now, you would not have been able to touch your pension contribution. But now what PENCOM says is that you can access that 25% and use that as your own equity contribution. So those are the immediate benefits. And then, of course, you cannot divorce that from the long-term benefits of, being assured of somewhat sort of financial stability, and, your needs being met at retirement by the time you are not earning regular income. So in terms of the benefits, you can have dedicated fund managers that have the expertise. You are able to access up to 25% if you have been out of job, so that you are not financially stranded. So far, that has been for 4 months. And then you can also access it to get a house. And we know that everybody now is interested in getting a property. Once you've sorted out real estate and where you're going to live, a lot of things can always take care of itself. But there are some improvisos though. You need to have made the contribution for 5 years, and then you must have 3 years and above to retirement. Thank you. And the key thing also is that those under micro pensions can be part of this as well. But the thing is, they must also be contributors. They must have contributed for 5 years, and they must have contributed for 5 years. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yetunde. Thank you so much, Adora. I think we've tried to lay background on the CPS and the micro pension, and I'm sure lawyers online will be able to take advantage of this and try to plan for the future. While we're speaking, I noticed that Dr. Fatima Keri Ahmed joined us, and you're welcome, Ma. So we'll just go straight to the questions and answer. For some of those questions online, I think our very own chair and our able secretary have been attending to some of these questions, but for benefit of some of the persons that joined us late, I think I'll just pick up 1 or 2 questions that we can actually treat. So someone is asking, as a private practitioner, how do you make voluntary payment to the PFA? And I think there's a follow-up question to this, which is similar. So we just, Adora can just answer that for us. I think the person asked, what accounts can this pension be paid into? So I think you should just type both questions. As a private practitioner, how do you make voluntary payment to the PFA? That's what the person asked. And then there's a question which I think is just similar. What accounts do I pay into? Is it I just walk to any account or any bank and just say, I want to pay for my PFA or something? So just give us within just 30 seconds on how to start or pay for the PFA.
Okay, so as a private practitioner who already, if you have a running pension, you can just make additional voluntary contributions that your statutory contributions are made. So if you're the one paying for your pension by yourself, making your statutory contributions, you can just increase it and just indicate on the schedule that it is a voluntary contribution. If you are, private practitioner, you don't have an account already, the micro pension plan is available for you, and already by default that is like a voluntary contribution. We do have designated account numbers that you can pay on. We have online portals, or of course, through which people can make those transfers. We track them, and we give you, proof that your funds have been received and that your funds have been credited. And every time that your fund is credited, you get an alert and your balance. So it's pension at the tip of your fingers, so to speak, to answer those two questions immediately.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, today someone is asking, I know a situation where a person was with a company and they had a certain PFA for payment of pension. When the person changed jobs, the new company had a new PFA. How can this be reconciled, considering that the two PFAs for the two companies are different? How would this affect total pension contribution of the employer? I think basically, most of the time, just like bankers, lawyers shuttle from one law firm to the other. So is it that when I move to another law firm, I open another PFA account, or I can have them run? I think that's what the question that this person is asking.
Okay, so in the course of the presentation, we had talked about the fact that you can only have one RSA account for those that are not under the micro pensions that are under the CPS. So you can only have one RSA account, and that is identified by your personal identification number. So once you have that RSA PIN, irrespective of where you move to, all you need to do is that when you move to a new job, you just advise your HR that, oh, I have moved, you advise your HR that this is my RSA PIN. And once that has been done, they would now start making remitting to the PFA that you have moved to. That's in the instance where you move. So you can actually move from one PFA to the other, but when you change jobs, it's got nothing to do with you having multiple accounts. You don't need to have multiple accounts. Indeed, you cannot have multiple accounts. All you need to do is advise the HR of your new employer and give them your PIN. And once you give them your RSA PIN, they will now start remitting that's the new employer will now start remitting your contribution as well as theirs. If you are under the CPS, they will start remitting to your PFA. So it doesn't affect anything. All you need to do is advise, your HR or the person in charge of your HR and all of that. Just inform them. Once you advise them of your RSA PIN and tell them, you'd advise them of your PFA as well. The remittance to the pension fund custodian that holds the asset or holds the fund will now be made. So it's very easy. Just inform your HR.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have just 3 minutes to go. But we have lots of questions. And while I was preparing for this particular discussion, my lecturer where I did my master's, and he taught us pension. He said he must say something. So please permit me 30 seconds. I don't know if he's still online. Mr. Damon Dashe, please just signify why we treat some of the questions. And then I'll take 2 more questions and then we'll be done. This question is from Onyinye Esther. And she says, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Onyinye Esther. I'm currently in my 3rd year in University of Nigeria campus. My question is, how can micro pension scheme ensure long-term stability, and how can contributory pension scheme be designed to include informal sector workers? Can we do that in 30 seconds, Adora, please?
And that has already. So to speak to how you are going to include the informal sector workers, that's what the micro pensions is really about. It is how the National Pension Commission has been able to get an avenue for informal sector workers to be a part of and to benefit from the retirement savings scheme. With the question of sustainability, we've been in this industry for 20 years now, and all of the guidelines and the principles that have been set up by the National Pension Commission, the guiding principles for all administrators in the country, is one of sustainability and growth. And indeed, the pension assets have continued to grow over time. That's why we can see, what we have amassed in, double-digit trillions in the industry today. And I believe that all of that is already sorted by the rules and regulations and the framework of the scheme generally. That's what it's designed to do. So that should answer that question. It's already what we currently are living today in the pension industry.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dashi.
Thank you for this opportunity. And let me quickly commend Adora and Yetunde for a well done job. Let me quickly add my voice to the question you asked, which parts have been answered by Yetunde and Adora on the issue of the inflation. There is also an angle that could affect the investment or savings by the pensioner when he has taken part or a lump sum of the sum invested, which is usually meant to be expended on pension, or usually meant to be expended on his consumption needs in retirement. At that point, such funds that have been saved is likely to also face inflation if there is a persistent or subsisting inflation at that point when that money is to be expended. At that point, the pension funds administrator may not be in a position to be able to determine or control the inflation as it affects the funds in the hands of the pensioner. But the only thing I would suggest, such situations, pensioners also need to have a good understanding of the kind of investment of expenditure they need to do when such monies are in their hands and need to be expended. And then again, one other issue that I would just need to talk about generally, my little understanding is that lawyers being private practitioners specifically seems to be worst off, especially the sole proprietors, who in Hausa, there's what they said, a lawyer is the translated directly, a lawyer who is on his own. That's what the Hausa person described a private practitioner. And the implication is that you find lawyers getting old, you find lawyers becoming sick with nothing to fall back on as savings or backup plans. And someone who probably had been doing well, when such misfortunes happen or such situations happen, he looks as if he was just coming out from a hole, or he never even had opportunity to save anything in life. So I think this is a good initiative, which I want to commend the committee for bringing up this kind of program. And also, we want the present National Executive Committee to latch on the initiatives of the Olumide's administration, which focuses NBA to be more of a welfare association that it ought to be. And I think going forward, I think NBA needs to collaborate more with the lawyers and see how we can institutionalize this, despite the fact that, yes, there is an extant law, but we need to encourage the members to see the need to begin to take advantage of the micro pension options, which a lot of us would be able to benefit from the micro pension plans. So I really would want to commend this initiative that going forward, I think this should be coming up even more often. And then a lot of publicity be made about this. I think it will go a long way in saving a lot of our colleagues whom, when they find themselves in situations like this, there is nothing to actually fall back on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come in here, Henry. Apologies. Sincere apologies to you. You and the panel, Yetunde, Adora, you've done perfectly well. And Henry warned us, you know, I will have to admit that while we were preparing for this webinar, that 1 hour will not be enough. But we all know that the SBL is a stickler for rules. We follow the rules, we stick to it. Perhaps we'll have a part 2. Perhaps we will have a physical event where we will dig into this, you know, more. But we are happy with the fact that we had representatives of the NBA here. We have a great representation of lawyers across different sectors, all kinds of lawyers in different spheres of life here. And hopefully we will, the SBL, through this committee, will be pushing this through to the NBA at the national level. to have something that will benefit lawyers. We will do that. We will push it. Before we close, we want to note that there are a lot of questions that have not been answered. We will answer these questions. Please start to look at your, watch out for our answers. It will come to you through your mail. Yes, our answers will come. I implore Adora and Yetunde to still give us some time to go through and provide answers to those questions. Before we close, we're going to, we want to identify and give honor to the chairperson of the section on business law, Ozo Olatunde Ugimudia. She was with us. I don't know if she's still there. Madam Chair, if you are, I don't know if she's still with us. Members of the SBL's Governing Council were also here. Mr. Desmond Dogba, Mr. Adeleke Alex Adekpe. We thank you for giving us your time. We're about to close. It's been an interesting time. Henry, please smile at me to show that you are still happy, because I know how passionate he is about lawyers' welfare, the welfare of legal practitioners, but we need to close. And I thank everyone. I thank you so very, very much for your time and for the knowledge shared, the attention paid. I believe one of the SBL Council members wants to give closing remarks and then end today's session of the Business Law Weekly. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Adeleke Alex Adedipe. Sorry, I'm just hopping around. I'm on behalf of the Council of the Section of Business Law. I thank the committee for hard work and a good turnout on this event. I've been listening, and it seems very intriguing. Clearly, an hour wasn't enough. Maybe you should plan to do a part 2 of the event very soon. But on behalf of the chairman of the council and all the members of the council of the section, we congratulate you, and we thank all the participants and all those that joined and participated in this event. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Yetunde. Thank you, Adora. Bye.
Thanks, Ina.